I want to begin by raising a question that has bugged me and many others for years. Is The Nightmare Before Christmas a Halloween film or a Christmas film? Don't answer yet. We'll get to that at the end of the night. I mean, sure, director Henry Selick just flat out said it's a Halloween movie when he was asked a few years ago. But what does he know? He's just the director. Film's open to interpretation. And notice I said director Henry Selick and not director Tim Burton. Tim Burton's the name you recognize, though. We'll get to that later. The basis for the film was an original poem that Tim Burton wrote in the 1980s while he was working at Disney. Imagine they made a whole film just out of a poem. Films have been made with less, but anyway. He was inspired to write the poem when he was in a shopping mall and he saw something I'm sure we've all seen at one point in our lives: Halloween merchandise being taken down and Christmas decorations being put up. Or in some cases these days, both being put up at the same time. Tim Burton graduated from the California Institute of Arts and became an apprentice animator over at Walt Disney Studios soon afterwards, but his stay was short-lived due to creative differences. He gained attention in Hollywood with his stop-motion films Vincent and Frankenweenie, and soon after he directed his first feature film, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, starring the same named character, Pee Wee Herman, obviously. Then films like Beetlejuice, Edward Scissorhands, and the first two Batman films with Michael Keaton would follow suit. And by then it was very clear that Tim Burton had a very, we'll say, quirky style of filmmaking. Around 1990, Tim Burton returned to Disney to bring Nightmare Before Christmas to the big screen. And that was prime time for the studio because they were in the period film historians now call the Disney Renaissance, which is when Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, Aladdin all came out back to back. According to director Henry Selick, Burton originally wanted to shop the project around, but Disney said, hey, we own your poem, so make it here. Burton received the story and character credit, and Michael McDowell, who wrote Beetlejuice for Tim Burton, was originally going to write the script, but he got sick, and then composer Danny Elfman's girlfriend came in and finished the screenplay. The screenplay actually wasn't even finished by the time they started filming. Tim Burton was too busy with Batman Returns and Ed Wood to direct, so he asked Henry Selick to take up the mantle. To this day, though, Burton gets all the credit and Henry Selick gets the shaft. Apparently, it was just going to be called The Nightmare Before Christmas before release, and that was the way all the way through production. And then like a month prior to the premiere, they changed the name to Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas. Henry Selick was a little bit bent about that, but he said in interviews he understands why they did it, because Tim Burton had a lot of star power at the time, and Tim Burton's name gets audiences in seats, not Henry Selick's. Despite all that, the two of them had a very good working relationship, and Tim Burton is still a big advocate for Henry Selick's work on the film. In an interview with the Daily Beast, I don't know where, that's just the name of the website I found this on, Henry Selick mentions 2 times they had major disagreements. He came up with an alternate ending for the film, which is very much in the vein of an old Scooby-Doo episode where Oogie Boogie is revealed to be Dr. Finkelstein, or the mad scientist in disguise. According to IMDb, the ending pissed Tim Burton off so much he kicked a hole in a wall. Baby. Somehow that ending still got storyboarded, and you can watch it on the DVD, and I've actually got a screenshot of that right there. The other disagreement they had was adding the shots at the end where Santa comes and he replaces all the twisted evil presents with regular presents. But they showed the film to some of Tim Burton's friends, and they liked it, so Tim Burton just had to go with it. All in all, it took a crew of 120 people over 3 years to make this film, shooting on 20 different sound stages. Stop motion is not a quick way to make a film. 18 months of production were devoted to it. There were 12 moves per second of film, and then you do the math of how many frames per second in a film, how long the film is. It's a crazy number. Stop motion is not for the faint of heart. In terms of the voice cast, not too many A-listers. Chris Sarandon is the speaking voice of Jack Skellington. His most famous work other than this is The Prince and the Princess Bride. Catherine O'Hara, who you might remember as the mother from Home Alone, She's done a couple of films with Tim Burton. I think this is the second of 4 she's done with him, and she voices Sally. Danny Elfman, who is the composer for the film, he is the singing voice of Jack Skellington. And originally he was going to be the speaking voice of Jack Skellington, but they decided his speaking voice was a little less or a little more off-putting than his singing voice, so they kind of went behind his back and they casted Chris Sarandon, and Danny Elfman was kind of pissed about that. But obviously him and Tim Burton made up because Danny Elfman scores every other Tim Burton film, if not every Tim Burton film. This is totally irrelevant, but in one interview, Henry Selick said Danny Elfman and Tim Burton have a weird relationship. So take that if you will. And then, yeah, interesting story about the casting of Santa Claus. They went with a completely unknown actor named Edward Ivory from San Francisco, but they did go for bigger names. They just didn't have a lot of luck with those bigger names. Originally, Tim Burton wanted his idol Vincent Price to do it, but Vincent Price's wife got ill, and then soon after Vincent Price got ill, Don Ameche was apparently a huge grouch, so they didn't stick with him very long. And the voice of Darth Vader himself, James Earl Jones, was going to voice Santa, but he got weirded out by Danny Elfman and quit. So unknown Ed Ivory became Santa, but at the same time, it's hard to imagine a creepy voice like Vincent Price's or the voice of Darth Vader coming out of Santa Claus. And with a budget of only $1.8 million, how much star power could they really put behind the voices of these characters? The Nightmare Before Christmas was released on October 24th, 1993. Don't let that date sway your stance on the Christmas film or Halloween film argument. Under the banner of Disney's sub-production company Touchstone Pictures, because Michael Eisner felt it would be too scary for kids. And originally it was going to be listed under the Walt Disney Animated Feature Catalog, and even in the original trailers it says Walt Disney Pictures Presents, and it's like in the tradition of Snow White and Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast, and then it goes to just The Night Before Christmas. And then nowadays when you watch the film, it'll say Walt Disney Pictures Presents. It won't say Touchstone Pictures Presents anymore, depending on where you're watching it or what version you're watching it. It currently holds a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes and has a box office gross of over $75 million. As far as awards, not too much. It was nominated for the Oscar for Best Visual Effects, and nominated for the Golden Globe for Best Score. It won the Saturn Award for Best Fantasy Film, and Danny Elfman won Best Score. It's been re-released in 3D over a few times in the recent millennia. The film gains a major presence in Disney parks around Halloween and Christmas, from character meet and greets to revamping the Haunted Mansion ride with elements from the film. Merchandise and decorations can be seen in stores on Halloween and Christmas, and all year round at Hot Topic and Spencer's. I wish I had a drummer in here to do that rim shuffle. Thank you, Nick. There's been a live stage show. The film's been a part of the Kingdom Hearts video games. There have been a fair amount of parodies, from Tiny Toons to Robot Chicken to Family Guy and so on. And even you guys, the BHS TV gang, paid homage to it in your Spook of the Devil's Halloween special last year. And by paid homage, I mean I told Flynn to put on this costume and go up on the rocks. And then to bring it on home, here's me in that same Halloween costume in 2010, and it still fits.